Show you how you can make a book using a combination of the 3D extrusion tools and lasso tools that Photoshop has built in. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's make a brand new layer, and let's use the rectangular selection tool, and I'll pick a red color to start out with. This is going to represent the dimensions of the book. I'll hit Command D to deselect. I'll go up to the 3D menu, choose New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer. And now what I want to do is I want to change the orientation. So this is now showing a 3D representation of our object. So in order to be able to see that better, at the very top, I'm going to go to where it says 3D Mode on the options bar in Photoshop. And I'm going to click on the very first item that's to the right of 3D mode. And this allows me to rotate the book, and now you can see that we have some dimensions there, right? And I can rotate it, I can change the angle, I can rotate it up like that. So I've got the rotation component set up, and now I want to go ahead and scale it. It's a little bit too thick, so I'm going to affect it on the Z-axis. And this gives me the front of the book, which is denoted in red. On the left, we have the spine of the book, and below that, we have what are going to be the pages of the book. And I'm going to use the 3D model here to help me correctly build those specific components on separate layers. So once you have the thickness of the book and the orientation of the book set up, let's go back to our layers panel, and let's right click on the layer, and we'll choose rasterize 3D, and that basically makes this object uneditable in 3D. So this is kind of committing your 3D changes. And what I want to do now is I want to extract the different sides of the book, and it also gives me a cast shadow here. I'm not going to use the cast shadow. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my magic wand tool. I'll select the front of the book. I'll make a brand new layer. I'll call this front, and I'll pick a red value, Option Delete, and Command D. I need to pick the side view here, so I'm again using the magic wand tool. And with the magic wand tool, you'll want to make sure the following settings are in place, because you might have some problems with this. First of all, if you look up here at the top, I've got sample all layers turned on. You need to have that on. Next, you want to choose a tolerance value. So the lower the tolerance value, the more specific the selection is. The higher the tolerance value, the more sloppy the selection actually is. So I'm picking a value. You can go between, like, I think 1 and 100 or something like that. 1 obviously is super precise, and 100 is super sloppy. And we'll go into the reasons of how you can adjust your tolerance, but for right now you can keep the tolerance value set to something fairly low, 20, 22, something like that. And that just allows me to make selections that are going to be more isolated. For example, the spine here. If I click on it right now, you can see that it's just selecting the spine. I just want to show you what I'm talking about here. If I bump the tolerance up to, say, a larger value like 70, now watch what happens when I use the magic wand tool in the spine. It selects the spine as well as it selects the bottom half. So I don't want that. If I choose a lower value, like say 15, now it just selects the spine. So the lower the tolerance, the more precise it is for the magic wand tool. The higher the tolerance, the less precise it is. So I've selected the spine. I'll bump that onto its own layer. I'll call it spine. And I'll pick kind of a dark red. These aren't colors that I'm totally going to stick with. I might tweak them a little bit, but this is just a start. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to select the pages. So because I have sample all layers selected here, I can actually make a new layer called pages. Magic Wand tool. And you can see here, if I zoom in, there's a little bit of that cast shadow that is also being omitted from the selection, right? If I bump up that tolerance value to say 40, notice that it selects that entire box. So you may or may not run into this. I'm just showing this to you in case you do. And I'm going to pick kind of a light gray value, not white, and I'll flood the color in. So I've got the front, the pages, and the spine. So that means I can turn off the 3D model, and this is what I'm actually left with. Well, something else we have to consider is the back of the book will also need to be present. So I'll just use my polygon lasso tool, and on a new layer that's underneath everything that I've created, I'm going to make a selection like so. I'll pick kind of a dark red value, option delete. So now we've got some thickness. Now we've got the front cover of the book and we've got the back of the book. So again, going with the shape methodology first, starting off with shapes, and then from there building detail. So the next shape I need to consider is that if you've ever looked at a hardback book, you will note that the hardback book actually has a spine and the pages are all glued and they're not flat with the book. There's a little bit of curvature. And in order to achieve this in a more precise way, I'm going to use the pen tool. So on the pages layer in Photoshop, I'm going to start off at the top corner right here, and I'll just click and drag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection that encompasses the area where the pages are all bound. So I've made this almost semicircle shape. I'm going to, with the pen tool still active, go up to Make Selection, and I'm going to choose New Selection, and you can see that that now is highlighted. If I hit Control J or Command J, Command U, I can make that a little bit darker. So that's going to represent the part where the pages are actually glued in. So this is what I have so far. You can see that there are some little white fringes. I don't know if you're aware of that or you're seeing that. Those can easily be adjusted. I can just go up to the front layer and I can just move it in and just tighten it up. It's not a big deal. And that happens because when the tolerance is really low, remember how precise it makes the selections? It is so precise that it leaves that little bit of a gap in. So I've got all the components of the book. For the pages, I want to use the polygon lasso tool, and I'm just gonna denote, like, you know, the hint of some pages here. So making very, very thin selections on the pages layer, hitting Command J, Command U, and you can see that that now begins to look like they're individual pages as opposed to one big block. And I'm going to alternate here with having some areas that are darker and then some areas that are a little bit lighter. You can see that when I zoom in. It just gives it a little bit more variety. Okay? So now I have the basic shapes set up for the book. At this point, I'm going to start adding details. So let's consider what might be appearing on the spine of the book. So I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool in this case, and I'm just going to make a rectangular selection that is going to match the perspective of the spine. And I'm on the spine layer here. I'm going to hit Control J or Command J, and I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. So this might be the area where the title is for the book, right? And I'll just kind of tweak that by subtracting from the selection. So I've got something that looks like this, right? Not going to worry about putting names or anything else like that on there, but I do want to give details to the other sections. So for the front of the book, there's going to be usually a small crease depending upon how a hardbound book is bound. Command J, Command U. And let me just tweak this perspective a little bit on the spine. You're going for believable perspective, right? Okay, so I've got the book. It's sitting there. Let's go ahead and add a title. So now I'll go to the front layer. I'm going to use my text tool. I'll maybe make this in white, and I'll type in spells. And I'm going to make this larger by using the transform tool. And if I want the word to kind of follow the perspective of the book, what I can do is I can use the skew option. So with the type tool active, if you hit Command T and choose skew, you can right click to get skew. You can then make it match the perspective, and this may or may not work. Sometimes, depending upon the type of perspective that you're using, you might have to resort to other tricks, but this is just keeping it very simple. So I've got the word spells here. I'll just move it into position, and I want to add a little bit of a bevel and emboss. And the bevel and emboss settings, I'm going to use a direction of down. I'm also going to use a highlight that is going to be white, and a shadow mode which is set to kind of a burgundy type color. And so those are the settings that I've actually affected. So you can choose whatever color you want. And this basically, the reason why I'm choosing down for the bevel and emboss is because I want it to look like the text is actually going into the book, like it's actually bound inside of it. All right, so now I've got the basic structure. I've got the book. Let's go ahead and paint in some detail. So I'm going to command click on the front of the book, and I'll make a brand new layer. So that just activates the selection. Pick a dark-ish value of burgundy, and with my soft round pressure opacity brush, I'm just going to gently paint around the corners of the book. Kind of makes it look a little bit less flat. And for the spine of the book, what I can do is take the stripes that I have and take the spine, merge those two together. I'll call it spine again. And what I can do is, okay, so there you go. You've got a book. Now what I can do is I can take all of these layers, group them together, book, and now I can duplicate that book. I can make the book bigger. I can make the book smaller. You can see that does have an effect on the beveling there, and I can even now easily change the color of the book. So I can go back into the front layer. Let's just merge the front with the painting layer, and I can just change the color of the book like so. Just desat it, and go to the spine. Command U. Choose purple, and desat it, make it a little bit darker. So it's really a cool way to, say, build up books that you might need in a library environment. Let's get the very bottom part done here too. So get that purple, make it a little bit darker, and there you have it. You've got books that you can now use within your environment. So I hope you found this helpful. I've been on vacation for the last week or so I apologize for not making a video last week, but I'm hoping to keep this a more regular occurrence every week. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.